In our first story tonight, the British High Commission, in collaboration with the Scotland Development International, is leading a 22-member delegation of investors aiming to explore business opportunities in the oil and gas sector. The aim is to take advantage of the technical and human resource opportunities in Ghana's oil and gas value chain. There's more in the following report.
With a deeper knowledge and broader experience in the oil and gas industry, the 22-member delegation is confident of helping to make Ghana's oil and gas sector far more competitive on the world market. Cameron Douglas is the international executive for the Scotland Development International.
I think it's strong at the moment. I think it's in a good place, particularly for West Africa. It's probably one of the sort of highlights, standout industries. I think for us it's around, okay, how do you take that forward, sort of increasing efficiencies, sort of making it more productive, and we have expertise and skill sets that we feel can help with that. And sort of the interest from Ghana we've had is that they're very keen to sort of hear from us, engage with us and collaborate, and at the end of the day do business.
The coming on board of these Scottish investors was based on close engagement with the UK-Ghana Chamber of Commerce, which has been acting as an agent between the investors and Ghana. Derek Kobina is the head of operations for the chamber. He spoke to Joy Business.
The UK-Ghana Chamber, we have a great partnership with the Scottish Development International. So we are our official partners, helping us to support them when it comes to these trade missions. Yeah, both from Ghana to Aberdeen and from Aberdeen to Ghana as well. Yes.
I believe you have listened to most of these investors, their concerns and their hopes for, having to explore the fields here in Ghana. What are some of the concerns that they've raised with you?
I think the concerns are when it comes to the local content and the regulations behind the local partnership. I think there's always a confusion, and that's what, as a chamber and with the SDI, we are trying to help for these investors, or these people coming into Ghana, to understand the framework behind all that.
Meanwhile, these Scottish investors wish some issues with the macroeconomic outlook will be addressed. Simon King is Sales and Business Development Manager of a global technology firm, Regnet. He laments to Joy Business the high cost of doing business in Ghana's oil and gas sector.
The special thing about Ghana in the Gulf of Guinea is its ambition to be one of the most easiest countries to do business within. So coming from the UK, having worked in Nigeria in the past, when we look at Ghana, we see, okay, the market is not as large as maybe Angola or Nigeria, but it has a very easy way of doing business.
Okay, Now, all these investors are currently here in Ghana to explore opportunities in the oil and gas sector. One of the key concerns that they've raised is the issue related to the local content law. They want clear clarity on this, especially as it's going to affect the operations and also determine whether or not an establishment here in Ghana is in the right place. Charles Aita reporting from the British High Commission here in Accra.
The Social Security and National Insurance Trust, SNIT, is to clamp down on employers who fail to pay their workers' contributions. Now, SNIT says this is one of several measures underway to help improve compliance and ensure that workers have a secure future. This was disclosed by Director General of SNIT, Dr. John Ofori-Tenkrang, as part of the company's InfoShop program. Bismarck Awusa has more.
The SNIT InfoShop program is part of efforts to educate students on the benefits of Social Security. Speaking to Joy Business on the sidelines of the program, Director General of SNIT, Dr. John Ofori-Tenkrang, says the move to name and shame defaulting employers is part of measures to ensure that employees' rights come under increased scrutiny.
Last year we went a mass prosecution program where we go through the database and we look at so-called recalcitrant employers and drag them before the courts. We also do what we call name and shame, where we will publish names of recalcitrant employers in the paper just to compel them to do the right thing. We consider that in the very near future. I would say watch out for the next few editions of the papers near you. Soon, sometime this year, if we deem it so necessary, we will do. We've done it in the past, and we wouldn't shy doing it again.
The SNIT boss also revealed that efforts to cleanse the payroll system of some ghost names are yielding the desired results.
So we went through a whole sensitization program, and then since last August and beginning February this year, we started deactivating pensioners who, after several attempts to reach them to come and register, didn't show up. And we've made some quite significant improvement on the payroll. I cannot give you the number yet, but I can tell you that we are probably saving well over 1.5 million Ghana cedis a month by cleaning the payroll.
The forum was organized in collaboration with University Students Association of Ghana, USAC, and brought together over 500 University of Ghana students and lecturers. Bismarck Ausa, Joy Business.
Well, away from that, the general manager of GN Bank, Issa Adam, believes the introduction of the Ghana reference rate could go a long way to reduce the cost of credit in the banking sector. The central bank introduced this in its quest to help reduce interest rates charged by commercial banks. Speaking to Joy Business, Issa Adam said the new formula will not only free the financial market but also heighten competition.
The reference rate is a good thing. That is even going to make it more competitive. Now we all have the same base rate. Then you add whatever your premium is. Once we are operating in a free market economy, if you put in very high risk premium, then you may not get customers to come to you to take loans. I know that banks will depend on loans for our income. One of our basic incomes is from loans, interest on loans. So if you are not able to come up with something which is acceptable to customers, then you might price yourself out of the market, and that will create problems for you in meeting your bottom line. So bring down the cost of credit to some level, but not what people are expecting. Currently, they've come up with is it 16.8 or so, and so premium. If a person asks on 10% premium, and take note that it's not going to be uniform for all sectors of the economy. The risk involved in giving loans to the commercial, call it trading entities, is not the same as giving it to manufacturing companies, and it's not the same as giving it to call it companies that are engaged in construction.
Government is looking at raising a little over 11 billion cedis in treasury bills and bond sale for the second quarter of this year. This was contained in a document giving details on government's borrowings for the second quarter.
Government is actually looking at raising 11.3 billion cedis in bonds and treasury bills that would be sold from this month to June this year. Out of this amount being raised, 8.7 billion cedis would be used to clear other debts that are maturing, while the remaining 2.5 billion cedis will be used to finance government's financing needs. From the document, a 5-year bond would be issued to raise 500 million cedis and a 7-year bond to raise 750 million cedis. Another 10-year bond would be issued in June, with the Finance Ministry targeting 750 million cedis. The Ministry of Finance has indicated that all the long-dated bonds from 2-year notes would be done through the book-building approach, with the exception of the 5-year paper that would be carried out in a global depository note approach, but clearance would be done in dollars. Some have argued that this bond-raising exercise could go a long way to reduce the public debt, which has reached 142 billion cedis as of the end of December 2017. This is because government is planning to raise fresh bonds at a cheaper rate to service the old expensive debts.
Meanwhile, the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, is leading a government delegation to engage investors in Japan over the upcoming Samurai bond. The non-deal roadshow would see the team engage investors as well as government officials in that country without raising any money at the end of the exercise. We captured some of the highlights of this engagement in this report.
The exercise is part of efforts to test the pulse of the Japanese market ahead of plans to issue the sovereign bond, which will be denominated in Japanese yen. The engagement, which starts today, is expected to end next Saturday. The meeting would also be used to boost bilateral trade and economic relations with Japan. The team is expected to highlight investment opportunities in the financial services sector and other critical sectors of the economy. The Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, and the Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana would also hold strategic meetings with portfolio and asset managers and try to whip up appetite for Ghanaian instruments. Mr. Ofori-Atta would also engage Japanese Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance about development about the Ghanaian economy. Other members of the team include the Minister for Roads and Highways, Deputy Minister for Trade, Information and Health, as well as the Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana.
Meanwhile, Deputy Minister of Information Kojo Ponkuma has been explaining to Joy Business why government is working to issue the Samurai bond.
Borrowing and GDP is coming down. You can't sustain the argument that you are borrowing to invest in all of these so-called infrastructure or development projects. But if you are borrowing and the GDP is going up, then we can make an analysis that what you are borrowing is going into productive activity and not necessarily consumption. So we are optimistic that we'll keep our discipline, the fiscal discipline we are talking about, we'll keep it so that whatever we are taking translates into an uptick in productivity in the Ghana.
Panda bond, Samurai bond, are you trying to diversify your streams of currencies borrowed so that you reduce the risk that you're exposed to as an economy?
Exactly the point, because if all your externals are in the Eurobond, or a good chunk of it is in the Eurobond, then should there be a major shock on the international market, be it currency or even markets, the Federal Reserve expects an uptick in rates in the US. You could have some risks. You have risk even when people want to repatriate their funds. So if we diversify a bit into the Asian market, etc., we reduce the risk. And that's why you notice that in this year's budget, we described it as sovereign bonds, but of different structures.
This is one of the recent impact of your Asian tour, and not trying to also demonstrate to the investors there that you are committed in engaging them and investing in the economy.
It's not exactly an impact of Asian tour. In fact, it is because of this strategy that we have started an engagement with the Asian markets to take up their interest and show them the kind of outlook that exists here so that they can also diversify their investment locations while we seek to get a diversified portfolio of investors.
You're watching Business Live. We are turning to the mining sector now, where mining firm Newmont has shut down all its mining operations in the country except essential services. This action was taken after 6 construction workers were killed in an accident at its Ahafo gold mine in the Bono Ahafo region over the weekend. Now, according to the mining firm, it would only resume operations after investigations are concluded. Yao Otre Introso is acting general manager at the Ahafo mines.
Plant is not running, just only essential services on the mine are running. The area where the event occurred, that is the Ahafo mill expansion area, will remain closed until the investigation is concluded. In terms of restart, we will not restart our operation until we've ensured that every other area has been reassessed before we resume operations. So currently, we are on shut. Our sister company in Achim have also stopped operation. They've suspended operation in solidarity with us until we resume back to work when the place is safe. I think at this stage, the important thing is to empathize with the deceased and their family and then the communities and the employees that work close with them. So money is not of the essence now. We want to continue to focus on what we have to do, which is empathy to our people.
So,
some people have attributed the Newmont accident to the lack of proper regulations for the sector by relevant agencies. Now, you remember that there was a separate incident at the mining firm Golden Star Resources earlier this year, but Lands and Natural Resources Minister John Peter Mewu disagrees.
The Minerals Commission has been detailed to take over the site where the sin occurred to investigate and come out with what actually happened. Our understanding is that the contractor is a civil engineering construction firm that is doing this job for Newmont, so it's a subcontractor that engages. So this is a complete civil engineering failure. the team will investigate as far as even to look at some of the detailed design, the structural design, whether the designs had actually been taken into consideration to take such a load of concrete above it, considering the dead load. All these things will be looked into as part of their terms of reference here.
Well, still related, Executive Director of the Third World Network Africa, Dr. Yao Graham, is renewing the call for government to ratify the Health and Safety Convention of the International Labour Organization. He says Ghana's inability to ratify the convention is creating room for mining companies to get away with the responsibility of health and safety of their contract staff. Now, as you've indicated, this follows what happened at the Newmont Ahafo mines over the weekend. Now, speaking in exclusively to Joy Business, Dr. Graham said the convention is long overdue since Ghana is a signatory to the ILO.
National Labour Organization's Convention on Health and Safety in Mining ensures that all mining companies take full responsibility of individuals having access to the mining sites, either on contract or permanent terms. According to Dr. Yao Graham, Ghana's inability to ratify the convention is creating a room for mining companies to get away with responsibility for the health and safety of its contracting staff at the mine sites. He was commenting on the recent incidents that claimed 6 lives of Consa Limited staff at the Newmont Ahafo mines in the Bronga Ahafo region.
In addition to the government, to the issue about casualization, there's also the question about what is the strength of the government's inspectorate for health and safety issues in mines. Thirdly, there's a global regime, the ILO Convention 176 on health and safety in mines, which the Ghana government has not ratified. If we ratified ILO Convention 176, it would lay the legal basis for us to beef up the demands we can make of the mines, and also the institutional regime that we set up to enforce health and safety in mines.
So you think we should ratify that deal?
We've been campaigning, and yeah, we should.
Dr. Graham spoke on the sidelines of a stakeholders meeting on the future of cooperation between European Union and Africa. He explained the need for the roundtable discussion.
It's about the future of Africa-EU relation. Actually, more broadly about is within the context of the relation between Europe and the African, Caribbean, and Pacific countries. Because 2020 will mark the end of the Cotonou Agreement, which has been the framework for Africa-EU relations, EU-ACP relations. So the experience of the Africa-EU relationship for many people has been symbolized by the acrimony around the negotiation of the economic partnership agreements. Because the word partnership, when we think about it, connotes equality, reciprocity, trust, giving and taking.
The 3-day event is being organized by the Nordic Africa Institute, the University of Ghana, and the Institute of African Studies and the Third World Network Africa. Ebenezer Sabute's report for Joy Business.
We are turning focus to health, and the CEO of Kofi Kom Pharmaceuticals, Kofi Addo-Ejekum, is advocating the creation of a pharma village which will serve as a hub for pharmaceutical manufacturing. This, he says, will make government's reduction in utility tariffs for the industry more meaningful, as well as ensure that utility companies specifically target the sector. Government in the 2017 budget statement reduced some taxes on raw materials on selected pharmaceutical products. Government is also currently implementing a 30% reduction in electricity tariffs. But Mr. Addo says utility companies can best target their pharmaceutical companies when they are collectively located within an enclave.
Because of the very position of pharmaceutical companies or industry, it makes it very difficult for the utility companies to really selectively do what we call that proper reduction that we are all yearning for. The Chamber of Pharmacy some time ago requested that the government does what we call a pharma village, especially for pharmaceutical manufacturing. If they could have a very secluded, dedicated area for pharmaceutical manufacturing, it would have been very, very good. Thereby, the government could really channel utilities specifically to that particular farmer village or industrial village for pharmaceutical manufacturing, to the extent that if the utility companies would want any reduction, would want any concessions, etc., for that particular enclave of the pharmaceutical industry, it would have been possible. For now, I think it's a bit difficult for them, but what they are doing is laudable. I think they can do more to support the efforts of government to reduce taxes, and also for us to be able to also reduce cost of medicines for the benefit of them. In fact, we have something like that in India and elsewhere. And the Chamber of Pharmacy advocated strongly to the erstwhile NDC government. And at that time, the minister in charge of PPP was interested in that particular agenda. But they went away, and Nana Akufo-Addo's government is in place now. We have again articulated this concern to get a place. If you drive past Miocho, the Central University College, they are doing some real estates there. And I think if we could get a dedicated place like that for pharmaceutical manufacturing, it would be very, very good for this country. Of course, the current government also wants packaging materials for local manufacturing done locally. I think it's a very, very good thing. Again, if we could have a dedicated area where all these industries are sited, then they could be regulated properly in terms of standards and so on. They could also be assisted greatly in terms of reduction in some of these utility costs, etc. Because, of course, if you increase utility costs or tariffs and you reduce taxes, I don't know whether you'll be doing justice to exactly what policy you have.
Well, we at Joy Business, we are planning a trade show on health that is coming up soon. Ahead of that, we have some tidbits on the contribution of the global health sector to economic development. Well, so like they say, watch that space. The trade show on health is going to be coming very soon. Another person you should be watching is Bertha Tubiga, because she's got all the market numbers for you. She joins me in the studio with the latest. Bertha, and the market doing very well. What's accounting for that?
Well, it's not just doing very well, but it's actually the best in Africa. If you're looking at all the markets that we look at in Africa, the Ghana Stock Exchange is returning the best, 31.63% average return as a close of today's trade. And you can actually attribute that to the fact that the Ghanaian economy is not in recession, is doing very well. Microeconomic indicators have been stabilized a bit, and we're hoping that it continues to go down, especially with interest rates, because there's an inverse relationship between the stock market and interest rates. And investors are also beginning to have confidence in the market. So we see a lot of people coming on board because they are not getting much returns from the money market instruments. Investors that want the best or very high returns will definitely look out for the equity market, because that's what's happening right now. It's bullish. We saw some downslides some months back, about a month ago, but it's been able to pick up, and it's adding up to investors' capital, and investors are very excited about what's going on the market. But we still have some equities that are also losing on their share values on the Ghana Stock Exchange.
And you also tell me that people are upbeat about MTN coming on board.
Yes, a lot of, almost everywhere I go to, people are like, when is MTN coming on board? I want to buy shares of MTN, because of the notion that, well, MTN is a very big company. They're doing very well. and a lot of people will want to own shares of MTN because of that brand name. And let's not forget that it's not only going to be listed on the Ghana Stock Exchange, but it's already listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, and that's the GSC Limited and the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and they are doing very well. So people are expecting that it will continue to add value to them, and they are going to make a lot of money from it. And don't forget that because of what's happening now on the stock market, in terms of the fact that the stock market is returning positively to investors as compared to other markets, it also gives people the confidence to invest in companies like that are actually coming on board. And we should expect more companies to list on the stock market soon. So
let's look at the market numbers today. Let's look at today's performance. What has it been so far?
Well, today the market closed with 6 gainers and 2 losers. SPL and Standard Chartered Bank were the only losers on the market. SPL lost 33.33% and Standard Chartered lost 0.28% of its opening value, and they closed at 2 pesos and 35 Ghana cedis, 10 pesos each by close of day. We had PBC, Cal, Gold, Unilever, GCB, and BOPP adding up to investors' capital, and Cal was actually part of the equities that traded the highest volumes of shares on the market. Gold also traded significant volumes of shares on the exchange, and we saw it add up to investors' capital. Gold went up by 0.20% to close at 5 Ghana cedis per share, and Cal Bank is trading at 1 Ghana cedi, 68 pesos. That's very impressive, considering the fact that we usually see Cal trading between 90 pesos, 1 cedi at most, like 1 cedi, 20 pesos, but this time around it's gone beyond 1 cedi, 50 pesos.
Great. And you have some bits on the dollar against the cedi.
Yes, the cedi has actually done so well to the dollar, especially as compared to the other major trading currencies on the interbank market. And by the cedi lost about 0.03% to the dollar.
All right.
And that stability is going to continue till mid-year. We should expect that.
Thanks very much.
Very
time to go with the latest on the stock markets. Let's move on to our interview of the day. Head of Technical at the Ghana Oil and Gas Insurance Pool, Kwabena Labi, has disclosed to Joy Business that the pool is looking at accumulating gross premiums exceeding $50 million. He said the amount is bound to increase further as activities in the sector are expected to surge following the landmark ruling of the ITLOS in favor of Ghana. He spoke with Joy Business at a 3-day energy insurance program organized by the Ghana Oil and Gas Insurance Pool in Accra.
If it's the collective decision of the industry that they form an association to underwrite oil and gas, the pool is more than welcome to do that. I think it will grow in also ensuring that also the knowledge in oil and gas is also transferred to the broking community. So I think it's a fantastic idea.
Okay, so finally, oil and gas insurance, significant improvement.
I can see in the last few years we've done our bit. We started with 1 FPSO, now we have 3 FPSOs. It's going to grow. We are looking at around $50 million in gross premium. We are looking at in the next few years this can also grow. Bear in mind that the $50 million is not all the companies that are insuring. We have some of the companies who are still using global insurance companies. So when we get to the point where the compliance issue comes in, the Petroleum Commission and the National Insurance Commission set up this joint task force that they intend to set up, and we bring all these. We are going to increase the premium that are going to retain in the country, and there will be additional revenue coming in. There will be increased jobs, and it has direct benefit to the economy. So that is not understated at all.
And that's it for our program tonight. Thanks for watching. My name is Daryl Kwa. We are back same time tomorrow.